So there's some interesting things that I'm learning today. Number one, waking up in the morning in the summer in the Midwest. We are currently in St. Louis, Missouri, here at Union Station. And walking outside, it is completely unlike Atlanta, Georgia. It's unlike Destin, Florida. It's the summer, but it can still be cool. As well as this water you see here beside me is actually a giant koi pond. There's a lot of fish in there. That's pretty cool. I didn't see them last night, but I'm seeing them this morning with the sun coming down and hitting the water. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. The other thing is that apparently, despite there being a war going on, Russia isn't quite what I thought it was, because things are still pretty normal over there, despite the conflict that they're engaged with because they're still holding air shows. But unfortunately, at a recent air show, there was a helicopter crash, and it was a deadly Mi-8 helicopter crash that was caught on video. And I want to warn you guys that watching this video of this deadly crash shows extremely graphic content not suitable for all viewers. And there was a video recorded by a spectator at the Gelendzhik air show in Russia last Thursday, which shows the terrible moment when a military Mi-8 helicopter crashed on the airfield. Russian media reported that 2 people on board were killed on site, while a third person sustained injuries, and his condition remains critical. No one on the ground was hurt. The exact cause of the contributing factors of the accident remain under investigation, but the footage shows the twin turbine helicopter making a bouncy landing and its tail breaking off. So again, remember folks, while watching the video does not feature graphic images, some viewers might find the footage of the content disturbing. So that's a thing. Crazy enough as it is, but I also think that this is par for the course. It's kind of like you kind of got to believe half what you see and none of what you hear, and what they want you to believe is what they show you, which is, you guys watch the news, you know what's happening. But in my experience, it isn't necessarily always the case, or at least to the point of which we can say that unanimously, a blanket statement that everything that happens in Russia, or everything that happens in a certain city, or everything that happens in a certain state is indicative to all of the country, or all of that state, or all of that city, or whatever it may be. So take it with a grain of salt. Remember, trust but verify. However, there is something wrong at Toyota, and I think we're seeing it in real time. Maybe. We've been driving along here up from Florida, through Georgia, through Tennessee, through Kentucky, through Illinois, and now into Missouri, and continuing on. I'll see if this trend and this pattern continues, but along this drive, this road trip, the only dealerships that we pass with little to no inventory are the Toyota dealerships. Now, I don't know if this is a coincidence or what, but we've passed BMW, we've passed Mercedes, multiples of these brands, Honda, Ford, GMC, Cadillac, Nissan, Ram, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge. However, Lexus had inventory, but Toyota does not. Toyota does not seem to have inventory. Kia, Hyundai. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Despite Toyota and their technological advancements and their new revolutionary hydrogen-powered V8 engine, are they selling cars and trucks so fast that they can't keep them on the lot? Or are they possibly experiencing a shortage of supply? Or maybe they're being stolen. Maybe the car's just being stolen in the middle of the night. I saw videos online from dealerships in North Carolina and New York getting robbed. Or maybe the cars are hidden somewhere and we just can't see them. Because somebody discovered an abandoned Saab dealership with more than 20 cars locked inside, locked away for nearly a decade. All these old Saabs. Do you remember Saab? I remember Jerry Seinfeld, he drove a Saab Turbo in one of his, or some of the episodes on his sitcom, Seinfeld. And the picture that they have here almost looks like the chop shop like warehouse that he walked through when they were trying to find his missing or perceived to be stolen Saab. Maybe this is all just a new trend. Maybe it's all just a new trend. John Hughes Kia, to get a new modern dealership, however, asked to create more green space. So the green space comes at an added cost, okay? And it's not going to be utilized for inventory. And on top of all the other challenges facing car dealerships, they might just end up walking, maybe. And further contributing to the economic crash and massive bank loan default crisis and corporate and commercial real estate mortgage foreclosure warnings that we have been seeing here recently from some of these larger banks. However, what's bad for one man is good for another. Developers eye car dealerships as residential condo sites in Toronto. Toronto continues to grow and expand. Many changes are reshaping the landscape that the city once knew. One of those changes in particular has been the number of car dealership lots and stores disappearing across the city and even the greater Toronto area to make way for more developments, both residential and commercial. Right now, there are active development applications for a slew of car dealership sites in places like Leaside, Midtown, North York, and even Thornhill at Yonge Street and Steeles Avenue. One reason for the disappearance of car dealerships is the surge in land values across the city. As Toronto's population grows and urban space becomes increasingly limited, the value of land has soared. This has prompted property owners to consider alternative uses for their valuable plots, often opting for lucrative development opportunities like high-rise condominiums, office spaces, or retail complexes. Even the design of mixed-use projects where residential buildings meet commercial space, a common design in Vancouver that is now seemingly populating the areas of Toronto's Corktown and Riverdale neighborhoods. The old style of dealerships where you are parking cars on it is a tremendously inefficient use of land and resources, according to a senior VP at the Building Industry and Land Development Association. Justin Sherwood said that that's why you're seeing the type of traditional dealership that you think of the 70s and the 80s with large lots and a lot of cars disappearing, and why you're seeing more compact vertical dealerships coming out. Now, Sherwood highlighted this idea by pointing to the bottom of the Don Valley and Gardner, where multi-story buildings with car storage on top like BMWs are found. These changes reflect the evolving needs and preferences of Toronto's diverse population as the city embraces modern living spaces and vibrant mixed-use communities. And according to Sherwood, this redevelopment can be attributed to 2005 when the Liberals implemented the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, a government policy that helped ensure growth and development in the area was coordinated and efficient, resulting in the creation of more upwards buildings and limiting the expansion of boundaries at the edge of communities. In doing this, it started this increasing trend of having condo buildings built in urban environments, and that drove property values up. Over the years, car dealerships have occupied prominent locations throughout Toronto, with the strip of Ellington Avenue West coined as the Golden Mile along Dufferin Street, or at Yonge Street and Steeles Avenue, for example. However, with the city's rapid growth and increasing population density, the demand for residential and commercial spaces has soared. And at the same time, office vacancy rate in Toronto surges to its highest level in nearly 30 years. A recent report by CBRE, a commercial real estate firm, reveals that office vacancy rates in Toronto have experienced a significant increase in the last quarter, reaching its highest level since 1994. And the firm announced that the vacancy rate rose to over 18% in the second quarter compared to 17.8% in the first. And in comparison, the first quarter of 1994 saw a vacancy rate of almost 19%. Now, we'll probably end up driving through Canada and checking out Toronto on our trip, so I will be interested to see what the real estate landscape is all about. Is that what they say? All about? Despite the changes in evolution in car dealerships and maybe a future of online ordering and direct-to-consumer automobile sales being the next new normal, there are other questions that must be answered. And maybe Toyota is right. Maybe we do need more hybrid cars and fewer EVs. The auto industry is going all in on EVs, but a more effective way to lower emissions quickly is staring us in the face, is what they say. And according to The Drive, the data is conclusive. Electric vehicles generate fewer carbon emissions than those powered by combustion engines over their lifetimes. But EV adopted, or at least the EV adoption, is tripping over range limitations, patchy charging networks, and high prices resulting from the cost of the batteries that power them. There are a few reasons why I prefer gas powered, and there seems to be good reason for it as well, as these Buc-ee's gas stations continuously are being built. Hundreds of pumps, a sea of gas pumps, and plenty of cars and trucks and vans showing up to fill up on this petrol, this dinosaur juice. However, they do have an abundance of Tesla superchargers, for which I saw maybe one vehicle charging at the time. Maybe. I think it was a Jeep Wrangler 4xe, but I couldn't confirm that. I don't think it was a 4xe. I think they were just parking there because it was the only parking spot available, as this Buc-ee's in Sevierville was slammed packed. However, the range limitation is a no for me, dog. And for those reasons, I'm out. I don't want to have to be limited to 300 or so miles of range on a weak infrastructure and network for charging, while also having to wait long periods of time for the battery to charge. I prefer 400 to 500 miles of range, and then when I need to fill up, that can be done. I can fill up in probably less than 10 minutes, but in the time that it would take me to park and start pumping gas, go inside, use the restroom, maybe grab a bottle of water, I'm ready to go. You see what I'm saying? What's more, EV battery supplies are expected to fall short of demand within the next couple of years. Benchmark Mineral Intelligence told the Financial Times it forecasts lithium demand growing 5-fold by 2035, while Boston Consulting Group predicts chronic shortages as soon as 2025. Last year, Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares warned of similar in CNBC, foretelling mineral and battery shortages later this decade. So is there a better use for batteries currently being crammed into a relatively small number of these $60,000+ electric sedans or $100,000+ electric pickups? Could switching to full hybrid model lineups, now mostly dismissed as a temporary bridge, actually reduce emissions quicker than fast-tracking EVs in the short term? Things aren't as straightforward for EVs, though, which the EPA lists as emitting no CO2. While true from an exhaust standpoint, making the electricity needed to charge them does generate CO2. An average of 386 grams of CO2 emissions, carbon emissions per kilowatt hour in the U.S., according to the Energy Information Administration, the EIA. And we can then estimate their hidden CO2 emissions with the equation or some mathematical equation, but it's the same formula that's used to calculate the break-even point for EVs. And this is what they do when it comes to charging and production emissions versus their on-road savings. Now, consider just having or just how much battery your typical mass market EV uses. Operating a Ford F-150 Lightning, if you could afford it, may generate less than a third of the CO2 emissions of a gas F-150. But each one hoards 98 kilowatt hours of battery, most of which will be used only on the rare prolonged drive. Meanwhile, the F-150 Power Boost Hybrid, the Ford Power Boost Hybrid F-150 battery is just 1.5 kilowatt hours. It doesn't achieve nearly the emissions reduction the Lightning does, but Ford could make 65 of them with the batteries that go into a single Lightning. That adds up. That adds up. That adds up to me moving so I don't get a copyright strike with this music playing in the background. All right, let's see if this works out a little bit better. I'm sitting here in front of this giant St. Louis wheel, giant Ferris wheel. Looks pretty cool. Don't think I'll ever get on one of those, but hey, I'm not built for it. But as I was saying, Ford could produce 65 of these Power Boost hybrids in comparison to just one Ford F-150 Lightning. And that adds up because if Ford sells one Lightning and 64 regular ICE, internal combustion engine, max carbon producing F-150s, it's cutting the on-road CO2 emissions of those trucks as a group by 370 grams per mile. But if it sold 65 hybrids, spreading the one Lightning's battery supply across them all, it would reduce aggregate emissions by over 4,500 grams per mile. And this is using the exact same amount of batteries. The distribution is just different. So which one is more effective? Which one is more efficient? Which one is going to be better for the environment? Which one is going to be a much more sustainable long-term solution? The pattern holds true for the for the Hyundai Kia combo and the BMWs as well. Going full hybrid lowers emissions far more than building a handful of EVs and a ton of gas cars. Split up an i4's battery and you can make 7 330E PHEVs, cutting 560 grams per mile to one i4's 266. Divvy up a Kona EV and you can make 7 Nero PHEVs worth 1,085 grams per mile in reduction in comparison to one EV worth 239. Or 41 regular Nero hybrids. The math continues to prove the same results. And like the Ford, they make better use of a fixed battery supply by spreading it across a large number of hybrids rather than concentrating them all in a single EV. Now, hybrids as a whole have taken a long time to capture market share, accounting for just 5.5% of the light vehicle market in 2021. And this is according to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. That's over a period of 24 years since the pioneering Toyota Prius entered into production. EVs, meanwhile, achieved a similar market share in less than half that time, attaining 5.8% of the U.S. market in 2022, according to the Wall Street Journal. That's only a decade since the shift from Tesla Model S entering into production. But EV buyers benefited from more generous tax incentives than hybrid customers ever did, and with the previous federal EV tax credit effectively conjuring the market out of thin air, like it dictates the size and kinds of cars we buy, both directly via the chicken tax and indirectly La CAFE regulations. Government policy strongly influences which powertrains we choose. And they have a way of manipulating things and people and taxes and money and incentives and mandates and laws and rules and fines and penalties to get what they want. So far, the government has favored the shiny, hype-driven solution of fast-tracking EV adoption when the math suggests that that's suboptimal, at least for the short and medium term. If anything, it's probably fair to say that the overemphasis on EVs is slowing the decarbonization of the auto industry for the time being. We can't afford to overlook the role hybrids have to play here and now in favor of a far-flung future where every car on the road is pure electric. Besides, the 2023 Toyota Prius is one of the best looking cars on sale today, and it makes making that shift, that solution, much easier to choose. And I will say that this is what the Drive claims, but the new Prius does look actually really good. But again, that's neither here nor there. The point is, there's an agenda. They are preparing for something, and ultimately there's going to be a huge benefit for them in some way, shape, or form. And it has less to do with going 100% electric and reducing emissions and becoming less dependent on fossil fuel and gasoline, as it does to them actually making money and putting it in their pockets. Backdoor deals. We'll just leave it at that. Yet, Toyota continues to develop 100% battery-powered cars and other solutions still. Toyota reveals its solid-state EV battery with a 745-mile range and can cut emissions by 39%. The world's largest car maker by sales caught the markets by surprise by announcing its plans to commercialize its solid-state battery technology by 2027. Toyota announced that as the next generation EV continues to use new batteries, they're determined to become a world leader in battery EV energy consumption as Toyota's next-gen EV battery technology is revealed. The Japanese car maker, which has been lagging behind rivals in rolling out EVs, unveiled its solid-state battery breakthrough, and the automaker said that it was able to simplify ways to produce the materials used in making solid-state batteries. And I'd be willing to bet this has a lot to do with their networking and collaboration with other car manufacturers who are already in the battery-powered EV game, specifically BMW. BMW's technology that they're rolling out in their i-Series, which they had already rolled out in their i8, but also that led to Toyota and BMW working collectively on the Supra, the GR Supra. However, Toyota further noted that this discovery will enable it to half the size, cost, and weight of EV batteries, reduced by 50%. That also means significantly cutting charging times to 10 minutes or less while increasing the driving range to 745 miles or 1,200 kilometers. Currently, the luxury brand Lucid Air holds the longest drive range of 516 miles. But again, this is all going to be dependent upon your ability to be able to afford these vehicles, as Lucid is anything but an affordable car for most. President of Toyota's R&D Center for Carbon Neutrality commented, I think it's Kija Keita, that they're planning to achieve reductions both in their liquid and solid-state batteries. He further said that this new battery will be simpler to make than a conventional lithium-ion battery. Crazy how technology advancements and technology continues to advance technology. The car company has been working on this technology since 2012, and it's becoming a reality. But again, this all may change as Biden's plan to increase EV ownership has been shot down by car makers who say it would substantially increase the vehicle costs. The Biden administration's ambitious plans for an all-electric vehicle future have been heartily welcomed by environmentalists, but the auto industry at large has been far more reluctant and even outwardly critical. In addition to its concern that manufacturing so many all-electric vehicles in such a relatively short time frame is too aggressive a goal. There's a backlash over just how much these new automobiles could cost consumers. And if the consumers can't afford it, then the manufacturers don't sell them. If they don't sell them, then they take on loss. And I'd be really interested to see that if there is a change in the administration in 2024, do we see a pullback, a pivot on this push for EV? Theoretically, assuming we go Republican instead of Democrat, to be determined. President Biden is pushing hard for the widespread adoption of electrical vehicles. Last April, the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, proposed a rule that by 2032, 2/3 of new passenger cars and 25% of new heavy trucks sold in the U.S. will be 100% electric. This would be a dramatic increase, to say the least. For perspective, just 5.8% of new cars and less than 2% of trucks sold in 2022 were all electric. And this is according to the New York Times. So that's going to be a huge mountain to climb. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation, a lobbying organization that represents 42 car companies that account for roughly 97% of the new vehicles sold in the U.S., wrote to the EPA that it does not believe Biden's goals can be met without substantially increasing the cost of vehicles, reducing consumer choice, and disadvantaging major portions of the United States population and territory. But if we do look at the numbers and compare here, we've got less than 10 years to get to this point of which we would see an increase from 5.8% of cars and 2% of trucks to 100%. That's a lot in consideration to the struggling network and infrastructure for charging. I think that's the bigger problem that we may face. Now, this is a complicated issue. On one hand, an EV can easily cost $10,000 more than a gas-only vehicle. This is according to Car and Driver. But on the other hand, EVs can often save consumers tons of money on gas over the long haul. Sort of. Because, forgive me guys, there's a lot of work and construction going on around here. So if it's getting loud, hopefully the mic doesn't pick it up, but they're rebuilding this entire building. I don't know what's going on. But it says that consumers would save money on gas over the long haul. However, we all know that there will be new taxes implemented for electrical charging and quite possibly how often you drive your vehicle, regardless of how it's powered. So that money savings is going to be negated. It's going to be taken back in some way, some shape or form. They're not going to allow you to get ahead like that. And everyone has seen how high gas prices can go. Now, granted, we did see some reprieve the other day with Sheetz selling gas for $1.776 a gallon for the holiday. But according to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, from January to June of 2022, the price of regular motor gasoline spiked 49%, and the price of diesel fuel rose slightly more at 55%. But I'd also be willing to bet that once we start seeing more taxes imposed on electrical charging, then we'll start to see those rapid fluctuations and spikes in price when there's some form of shortage or surge or need to reduce the amount of electrical consumption or transportation, travel. At the same time, automobile prices have increased significantly. According to Kelley Blue Book, the average price of a new car was $2,250 higher November of last year than it was the year before that. Tacking on an additional 10 grand or more for an EV could be extremely unfeasible for many automobile owners. And this just after U.S. Navy stops Iran from seizing 2 oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman. Iranian Navy opened fired on 1 commercial oil tanker. Auto dealers are buying more electric vehicles than their gas counterparts in some instances. However, this really does make me wonder, is this all by design? Auto dealers now report holding 92 days of electric vehicle EV inventory compared to 54 days of traditional gas or diesel vehicles on their lots. This new dynamic coincides with lower pricing for EVs, with several new markets offering various price points that make the move to an EV an intriguing choice for buyers. But I think these numbers are skewed because obviously last year before that, we had issues with supply chain. So obviously the days of inventory on car dealership lots the numbers are going to be off. However, good news, Amazon, Rivian, their deal sends their shares to a new high, okay? And I want to ask you guys to go back and watch if you haven't seen it. Otherwise, do you remember what I told you just the other day about my investments into Rivian and battery-powered EV car manufacturers? Well, ladies and gentlemen, folks, here we go. Rivian shares continued their upward climb to a new high after Amazon announced it was taking the auto company's technology with them to Europe, okay? Over the last 5 days, shares of Rivian have skyrocketed roughly 40%, while a stake in Amazon has jumped 25% during the last 3 months. Now, if you want to know more about that, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on your alerts and notifications, check out all my videos, but more importantly, come and join me on Patreon where I discuss more about this than I will here on YouTube. Until next time, you guys take care, be safe. I'll see you real soon. Bye.